Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 4 of the HNE Show. And this is actually a really interesting show because I think in terms of, podcasts and, shows like this, it's very rare we get back-to-back episode kind of continuation in terms of both topic and guest and just the whole thing all together. So if you couldn't tell by the description and /or, depending on where you're watching it, the contents, the visual that's applied for the video version, we are joined yet again by Jackson from Full Circle, editor-in-chief over there. Jackson, I don't know if you want to say a few words before we get more into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you listened to last episode, I said something at the end, and I think it's fair for me to have come back to discuss what I talked about in last episode. And I mean, to just put it simply, I am here to eat crow.
But going to the second topic we have here, Batwoman, that role is being recast. And this is another, I don't know what's going on the past week, the past 7 days. Something is going on in the air with DC Comics properties because some of the most unexpected things in the industry, recasting a lead after one season, announcing something, the scope of the Snyder Cut. I mean, these are things that don't happen, you know what I mean? And they're both coincidentally happening with DC.
Yeah, they definitely don't happen back-to-back days.
Yeah, and yeah,
in succession of each other.
It's nuts, man. It's nuts. But just to give some quick context for people, now I'm going to turn over to you, Jackson, because I feel like I've been talking too much. Ruby Rose, who portrays Batwoman in the CW series, will not be returning for season 2. It is not related to certain things, just to clear up some misinformation that might be out there. It's not related to her onset injury that she had that really hurt her back and actually, I think, put her at risk of paralysis at one point. Not related to that. It's not related, after all, it seems, to scheduling conflicts with reportedly people were kind of assuming Ruby Rose wanted to do more film work, like with John Wick, and they were just thinking that maybe, hey, that's conflicting with doing the TV show, so it makes sense she'd maybe want to do the more lucrative film career out of the two. It does not appear to be that as well. And yeah, Jax, I'm just going to let you take it from here. I've been talking too much.
Yeah, so I'm definitely, in tune with all the CW stuff, and this definitely came as a shock to me yesterday. Ruby Rose was brought in prior to the Elseworlds crossover in 2018 to take over the role of Batwoman going into her show that would have premiered that fall, which did last year. So that series took off. I watched a good bit of it. I didn't end up finishing it. I'll probably end up having to go back now and finish it now. But what I saw, I very much liked, and the characterization of Kate Kane was something that was a draw and was interesting. What they were doing with the character in the show, it was definitely raw. It hadn't found its footing really, which happens in these CW shows. They don't all come out of the gate like The Flash and just have this incredible first season. Arrow's first season is good, but it's a little mixed. Same with Legends of Tomorrow, definitely on the lower end of first seasons. Supergirl's is really rough. But Batwoman had something going and had some interesting things going on, and especially in the finale, which sets up a fake Bruce Wayne coming in and showing the actor who will portray at some point I assume Bruce Wayne in the Arrowverse. So we have all that going on, and then out of nowhere, seemingly Ruby Rose just decides to walk away, and then it comes out today that it really wasn't her decision 100%. They were behind the scenes issue with producers, and she had her own issues, maybe acclimating to life, doing a 6-7 month shoot on a show in Canada that isn't really her style. And, I'll be frank, when she was cast originally, it came as kind of a shock to me. Ruby Rose is not your typical CW lead. When you look at a Grant Gustin and a Melissa Benoist, they were lower tier names who appeared on something like Glee, and then they were, picked out of that and brought onto a bigger, to lead a series. And Stephen Amell was a TV actor who they pulled out, and he's done some movie stuff since. But Ruby Rose was someone who was really into movie work, and she was in John Wick 2, and people really enjoy her performance there. And she was in The Meg recently, and she had a big role on Orange is the New Black, which is a massive Netflix show. It still might be Netflix's highest rated show. I know it was for a long time. So it's something like she was a much bigger name than something I was I was gunning for when it came to casting Batwoman. And then when it ended up that she was leaving, it was kind of a surprise that she would do that because of how open she was about how important the role was to her. And she came out, being a gay woman and all these things that were very, and it was important to her to portray a character that didn't get representation prior to the show. And it's really upsetting that this happens. I mean, this is kind of unprecedented in the CW. They're really tight-lipped about their stuff, and they kind of keep people in house, and they like to cycle through actors and use people because they all the CW flows in a very specific way. Tyler Hoechlin is someone who's been on the CW for a long time, and there's other people who come in and out of these shows and appear on guest starring roles, but this is something you just don't really see. And as upset as I am, I'm not really shocked because, like I said, when she was cast originally, I thought she was a bigger name than something that they would hope to get. And I think, maybe that caught up to them.
Yeah, and I was actually spot checking while you were saying it. So actually, Stranger Things broke the ratings record for TV shows.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Definitely makes sense.
Yeah, but no, with the Ruby Rose thing, I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is just to continue on the contact spectrum of things. According to TV Line, who has contacts, all over the place, but especially in Canada, which is a key place for CW shows, they say that it wasn't 100%, Ruby Rose's decision, as it's kind of being made out to look PR-wise. It was a breakup. She wasn't happy working on the show, and did that make her fun to work with? No. So everyone decided it would be in the best interest of the show and for all concerned if they parted ways. It just wasn't a good fit. Which I think, if that's true, 100% true, and not taken out of context in some way, shape, or form, very mature of them, very professional of them, very smart of them, to not make this some behind-the-scenes dramatic blow-up. So I got to give credit for that, because that would be exactly what the CW would do if this was a show. You know what I mean? Like, they would make it as dramatic as possible, as blowing up as possible, as illogical as possible. And I'm happy that in real life they're letting bygones be bygones, so to speak, not trying to make things more painful than it has to be, both for Ruby Rose's career professionally and also for, I guess, the cast and crew of the show. But the thing that makes me curious about this is they don't really say, any insiders and stuff like that, whether this decision of her leaving, of replacing her, recasting, if that was last minute or if that was a long form decision that was made across multiple weeks, maybe months. Once it was pretty obvious that both sides A and sides B weren't really getting along, in this marriage. So I find that really interesting because the plot line of season 1, especially near the end of Batwoman, and I'm going to let you speak more on this, but it involves Hush. And Hush is a character that is all about, in terms of like superficially describing him, face swapping and plastic surgery and changing identities. So I just find it really creatively convenient that if they want, they can pull the Hush card, pull the mouse card, and they can do plastic surgery as an excuse for Batwoman's new look. You know what I mean? To explain the recasting, so to speak. And if they want, they can go really crazy with it and really bend over backwards. And technically, it would make sense in the story. But I'm gonna let you speak more on that because I know you're a lot more informed, on the CW Batwoman show than I am.
Yeah. So the first season so far had seen, spoilers if you haven't seen it. The villain is Alice, who is Beth Kane, is Kate Kane's twin. They were separated after a car accident, and Beth was taken in by this doctor who had a son who was deformed, and he spent his whole, the boy's whole childhood trying to find a way to switch his face with someone more, appealing because, he didn't take to his deformity. And she grew up with him, and they learned from the father how to swap faces. So several times throughout the first season, we've seen people swap faces using the boy's name was Mouse, and it's Alice and Mouse who are kind of the 1-2 of the evil duo on the show. And it wasn't until later in the season that Tommy Elliott, aka Hush, came into their story, and they kind of grouped up together. Elliot had been a friend of Bruce and who kind of came to head with Kate for a minute early in the season, and then he showed back up later as Hush. And then, at the end of the very season I mentioned earlier, his face was swapped with Bruce Wayne's. Bruce Wayne obviously isn't in the show technically, but this actor has been cast to play Bruce Wayne, so at some point down the line it's likely that he'll take over that role rather than playing him as Hush. So yeah, there's a whole face swapping element, completely throughout the first season, and that's definitely a route they could take given that this convenient storyline is there for them. I've seen people talk about this online, and I think it's a much, much better option. Is the actress who plays Beth / Alice, Rachel Scarston. She's the best part of the show by far. She's a very good villain. She's an incredible character, and given the convenience that that Alice and Kate are twins, there is the idea that Rachel take over the role of Batwoman as well, and still allow them to be twins. It would be complicated for sure, because they already had an Earth 2 Beth come into the show. I don't even know if she's from Earth 2. She's from an alternate Earth during this After Crisis, and kind of throw a wrench in everything. So that would also add a weird element to it. But it's definitely an option given that they have the best actress on the show, and she could absolutely come and fit in the role given the family dynamic, I suppose. But obviously, I doubt if I had to put money on it, I bet that wouldn't be the case. Although I'm not, batting 1,000 this week, so we'll have to see what the situation ends up there.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, I guess, what they do with it. Kind of just. Well, I don't want to touch on it too much because I feel like it'll dominate the conversation once I mention it. So I'll push it back. But I just think it's I just can't grip my head around it. I mean, it's very rare that you have such coincidences for like a departure like this. But to already have a whole face swapping villain, a whole face swapping storyline, and then conveniently you'll have to face swap your lead character. I mean, it's just kind of. I mean, the only thing that'd be more convenient in my eyes is if they did the Flashpoint, like if this was the Flash show, right? And they did Flashpoint. They did the season finale with Barry going into the Speed Force, being lost in the Speed Force, doing Flashpoint, whatever they want to say, right? And Wally's left there.
Right.
And then Grant Gustin leaves the show. And then it's like, well, it's so convenient because you could just basically promote Wally to be the Flash now. You know what I mean? That's the only kind of similar convenience I could think of in a situation like this. So I hope the CW rides with it, just because, they were saying they had footage still from at least like another episode or so that wasn't completed because they ended up tying everything up as neat of a bow as they can. But I would imagine they might have enough footage, whether it's from unreleased episodes or from previous episodes, reuse it, which the CW loves reusing stuff, as they've done with every time the Flash runs.
You're not wrong there.
I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe reuse some scenes to, makeshift, create a opening scene that ends with maybe her getting captured and, eventually face swapped. You know what I mean? Like, all you need is a body double in the Batwoman suit for maybe a brief action scene. For any close-ups, just reuse some footage of Ruby Rose.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. For sure. They could pull that off. It's more about the viability of the fact that you're going to let your main character be face swapped and then just kind of ignore it. And, everyone else knows what kind of happened. It's so like, I think they kind of went about it the right way when Don Cheadle took over for Terrence Howard. And they were just kind of like, I mean, they definitely on the nose just kind of said, hey, I'm here, deal with it in Iron Man 2. They just kind of, moved on, like, we're done with it. I think that's rather where I would have them go. It's just kind of like, yep, I'm Batwoman now, we're moving on. That's just, everyone knows what happened, we're just doing it differently now, rather than kind of making it a story element and kind of making it really, really obvious that they're trying to deal with it. Because obviously this is a crap situation and nobody wants to be dealing with it, I would think. So just kind of like bringing somebody in and just filling the role and just kind of letting it go the same way, and maybe switching up season 2 a bit to make it more fit the actress you bring in. It's definitely complicated. I mean, the CW's never really dealt with something this big since they recast the Sarah Lance character going from Arrow season 1 to season 2, but she only appeared in one scene basically in season 1, and then she became a role player in season 2, so it's not even close to the same. Obviously, because Ruby Rose had appeared in 2 crossovers in a whole season of a show. So it's, very, very different.
I mean, so all right, let's say, I'm going to pose this question to you, but my side of it, if let's say I was the showrunner and I had to come up with 2 options to give, the executives at WB for moving forward. Obviously, the first one would be what I said before, just do a face swap storyline. I mean, you're going to already be changing the faces anyways. You can kind of poke some fourth wall if you do a whole face swapping storyline about how it's a new person in the role. I mean, you don't have to be over obnoxious about it, but it gives you some fun with it, at least a little bit, for the immediate beginning of it. And then you just move on and, do whatever you want to do. But I think the second option that is available to them, if they want to take it, I know they won't take this, but in different adaptations of Batwoman and Batman comics in general, there have been different people that have utilized the alias of Batwoman. You kind of touched upon it by saying have her, fraternal twin sister maybe take on the role. Maybe they should do something like that. I mean, I don't know how they would do it exactly, giving maybe, Ruby Rose's character somehow some sort of heroic death. It would be a hard sell, I think, for a lot of people, versus just recasting. Yeah. But it technically is an option. I just don't think.
No, right. And there are 2 options on the show they could even use. They have Alfred's granddaughter. I think her name's Julia Pennyworth. She's like a, she fights crime or not. She's kind of like a secret agent kind of thing.
Wait. You're telling me Alfred Pennyworth's daughter on this show is a crime fighter?
I think it might be granddaughter. She's not. I think she's a spy, something like that. I know she's helped Kate before. They had a relationship at one point.
2 seasons before she becomes either her version of Robin or Nightwing or Huntress. I give 2 seasons.
I know they've teased stuff that she may, join the team and fight crime and stuff. And the other option is her love interest. I'm blanking on the name. I can grab that real quick. Is her love interest who works for her father at the Crows. Sophie. Sophie was her love interest and supposedly supposed to be their in game is what their what their ship, if for lack of a better term, would be another option. She's she also goes off and is basically like a pseudo cop in the world, so she's another option.
Is it true that they're going to be doing Arkham Knight? I heard that at one
I'm not
point.
sure.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm not sure they would go that far. I know they'll definitely, as the seasons go on, they're going to pull in more Batman stuff because that's what they have to pull from. But I'm not sure they'll go that far.
Okay. I mean, I think it would work because they did the whole, if for people that read Detective Comics, I'm a big Tim Drake fan. So I was reading it when Tim Drake was the main character, when I think Tynion was writing it. Tynion, was writing the series, and Batwoman was also prominently featured, and they had a whole storyline, and, Batwoman's father basically had like this secret special ops paramilitary unit of, more or less Arkham Knights. You could easily swap them out as being Arkham Knights. And I thought it was really interesting. So I was like, oh, they can easily do that as a storyline in the future if they want. Sorry, that was kind of a tangent. But
no, but yeah. The option's there for sure. They have the pieces.
Yeah, and something I wanted to touch on, actually, you mentioned it. And so, yeah, at the end of season 1, Alice puts a skin mask on Tommy Elliott, a.k.a. Hush, to make him look like Bruce Wayne. And the actor they have portraying, I guess technically, Bruce Wayne, and for lack of a better word, you would imagine logically would also eventually be the unmasked, at least, portrayal of Batman. His name is Warren Christie. He was on The Resident and also Chicago Fire. Now, my personal opinion on them doing Batman on the CW, whether it's on Batwoman, Arrow, whatever show, I think they should have 2 different actors. One for Bruce Wayne, one for Batman. Because I think if you limit yourself to one actor for the role, it's going to make it really hard. Because what do? You know what I mean? If the Bruce Wayne actor goes away. And the way I kind of see it is how Star Wars has done Darth Maul. And we talked about this last episode with Darth Maul about how they have, Ray Parker as It's Ray Parker or Ray Porter. I always get it.
Ray Park.
Yeah, why do I always get it mixed? I don't know. I don't know who I'm thinking of here. But anyways, they have the voice nowadays, Sam Witwer. He is the voice, basically, at this point, for any depiction of Darth Maul. And then, obviously, the body on live action is portrayed by the original actor, who also just basically did body work from Phantom Menace, and I guess Rogue One technically as well. So I think if they did something similar with, and the CW has done this before, with Zoom, for example. They had Zoom be one actor voice-wise and everything, and then they had, when he was unmasked, another actor. So I think that'd be the best way to go about it in terms of Batman, because that way, if you want to have Batman in the future, you don't have to bring the actor back. But that was just kind of a brief tangent I just wanted to mention. Also, I think it works really well because you can have a really great dynamic, physically speaking, because you could have the actor portraying Batman, whether it's a stunt actor or whatever, just be this really jacked dude in the suit. And then, of course, you could have, Warren Christie just focus on the Bruce Wayne aspect. But, I don't know. I felt like I had to throw that in there. But with, just kind of going with the Batwoman, something I just thought about in terms of how they can approach this going forward is I don't think they'll use alternate Earth concepts. I don't. But
yeah, I find that really unlikely.
I think the cleanest way for them, yet again, is to do the face swapping storyline. But at the same time, I think if they just want to hire a new actress, which is hard for me, I can't think of an actress on paper that I think is as perfect visually speaking, like, appearance wise casting as Ruby Rose for the Batwoman role, because Batwoman's a hard ass character in the comics, very military, just very intimidating. Like, she's someone who, when, if I were to describe the character to someone who's not familiar, I would say kind of like very hard on the outside, but soft on the inside. And I feel like Ruby Rose does a really good job, definitely on paper, portraying that. Like, you see Ruby Rose and she could be very intimidating. Like, you wouldn't want to sit next to her on a bus, so to speak. But at the same time, you could kind of feel that if you talked to her and got to know her, you would have a laugh, have some beers or something. You know what I mean? Like she's not a hard ass through and through, but she can portray it so well. And she does it with John Wick as well. It just, like, I can't think of a better actress. So I don't know if you have anyone in mind, but
I know, I'm trying to pull up the name again. I'm just blanking on names today. There was an actress who was vying for the role on social media.
Oh, I know you're talking about from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Her name is Stephanie Beatrice. Yeah, she was vying for it, and she
was also vying for She-Hulk too at one point.
Yeah, she was. I think she mentioned that she wouldn't be able to do She-Hulk for some reason or another, but I don't know how you'd be able to do Batwoman and not, She-Hulk. But
it's probably more grueling shooting with 22
It would definitely
episodes.
be a lot more grueling and a lot more of a commitment, but she to me, she looks the part, and it is hard to wrap it around because it was hard to think of this before Ruby Rose was even cast. Like I said previously, I thought she was too big of a name.
It's just such great casting.
When it first came down to it, I thought she was much bigger than that show, than the CW. But if Stephanie Beatrice is down for the role, I mean, get someone in there who's a solid actor and wants to be committed, and that's all you're going to need.
Yeah, I mean, what really hurts, in my opinion, is, I mean, it's already going to be hard for the execs on this show to cast a new Batwoman, because not only are they going to want someone ideally that probably has some similarities to Ruby Rose in some way, shape, or form, you know what I mean? To make the transition as smooth as possible. But then that actress, they already said they want it to be someone who's publicly already LGBT. Which makes it even harder because your circle shrinks a bit. And then on top of that, I mean, you have to find someone in such a short period of time. You know what I mean? Like, at least before the show is ever made, you can take your time doing a casting search, negotiations, whatever. You're on a clock now. I mean, coronavirus, of course, gives you some leeway.
Right, but it's only delayed. So much. I mean, a month, 2 months, maybe at the most. I mean, I know they delayed everything to 2021. Like early 2021, so you have a few months ahead, but you still had to prep everything and be prepared, and and you need this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it just sucks because this is the main lead. You know, it's not even a character that you could write out. You know, if like,
and they were banking on her. She was going to be, you know, one of the parts of next year's crossover. She was going to be a major part moving forward as Oliver leaves and as Barry's on his last legs in the universe. Him and Supergirl and Superman were going to be the ones they hinged on going forward, and they're going to have to find someone else to fill it.
We got to say, you know, Barry may not. So I think this is actually interesting to mention, and I guess this is kind of in its own way becoming somewhat a larger CW discussion, but Grant Gustin, I swear to God, I will say names correctly on the first time one day. But Grant Gustin, aka Barry Allen on The Flash, is technically not signed for further seasons. The assumption is he will sign, but it is not official currently. Very much like a Dak Prescott on the Cowboys situation, where you expect that he will be the Cowboys QB in the future. But no pen has been
every
on
day
paper.
something else comes out about, you know, this, that, and the other.
Exactly.
You know, it makes every day it gets a little more, why haven't you signed yet?
Exactly. And, you know, situations like this put more pressure on certain roles like Batwoman, because like you just said, you know, it's very much so the future of the CW hero shows for DC is Supergirl, presumably Batwoman. They've been building that already, you know, the pseudo world's finest kind of thing. Basically replacing the pseudo Brave and the Bold dynamic of Arrow and the Flash. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think Grant Gustin, he's kind of made comments that makes it sound like he's ready to bow out if possible.
Yeah. I give that 2 more seasons at the most. 100%. I know it's already up for season 7, and I think season 8 may be the last one. They may take the Arrow route and just go out at season 8. And then, you know, that leaves with if Green Arrows and the Canaries doesn't get picked up, which it's seeming unlikely at this point today, you know, you're going to have Batwoman and Legends. Legends only has another season or 2, and then you're going to have Supergirl, Batwoman, Superman, and then whatever else they find to fill. Black Lightning, I suppose, is still going. Yeah. So we're going to have to fill these spots, and you know, they were hinging on something like Batwoman. You know, the CW's never canceled a series before. Arrow, Stephen Amell was done, and he did the 8th season as a favor because they wanted him to do it. But, you know, they've never gone outright and canceled a show. But, you know, if Batwoman, you know, this doesn't work and ratings fall and all this stuff, I mean, this is not looking good, you know, losing a lead actress on a show that was already struggling. I mean, Supergirl and Batwoman were struggling last season. And you know, not deservedly so, because I think Batwoman was better than its numbers were. But it's a tough situation. They need to be careful and towing the line here.
Yeah, I think speaking for how I would hope they might approach this is, look, you know, you already have the Canary, Green Arrow, right? That whole thing right there, ready to go. Roll with it. I would do a 1 season, just like Nickelodeon with The Legend of Korra, right? Before that thing became multiple seasons, it was a 1 season miniseries, ended up doing so well, they kept renewing it on a season by season basis. The pros of that, we got more Korra, which at the time was really great. The negatives of that, the story wasn't always super coherent across multiple books. However, with a show like this, The Canary, whatever, I think it could work as 1 season. I think it could work on multiple seasons on a season by season basis. The story might be a lot tighter, which is a problem for certain CW shows not always having beginning, middle, and end, so to speak, as neatly as they could. Usually because of how long the episodes are, and I think we've talked about that before, but I would postpone Batwoman. Don't rush the casting. I mean, this is literally your money-making lead actress. This is the face of your show. Every other cast, crew, role, storyline, whatever, for the rest of the series will depend on who you bring in to replace Ruby Rose. So I would postpone that so you don't have to rush that process. At the same time, I would move forward with the Green Arrow Canary show. I would also beg on my hands and knees to get Stephen Amell to do some sort of cameo to at least build hype for the first episode. Not like a regular cameo, but, you know, just like a one and done kind of thing, you know, hype him up and everything, get as many eyes as possible to give that show as a high a chance of success as possible. Do that. Run with that for like a mini series. Maybe don't do a full 22, do like a more Netflix like, condensed 10, 12 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, I've always said they need to cut these shows between 13 to 16 episodes. Legends only does 16, and it's better for it.
Yeah.
Every season you have 5, 6, 7 episodes that are just completely useless and don't add anything to the overarching story, and then they just don't work. I remember one example, and I was talking to a friend about this the other day. Arrow season 5, which is arguably the best season.
Which
the
one
back
is that
half of it
again? Which villain?
Yes, Prometheus.
That was great. Yeah, go on.
The back half of that season is my favorite Arrowverse content. It's incredible, and I loved it to death. But there was one episode, episode 21, I think it was 20 or 21, that ended up being a bottle episode where Felicity and Oliver get trapped in the bunker. And the reason they had to do it was because of budget restrictions on how much they had to spend on the finale. So they shot an entire episode where 2 characters just get stuck in a bunker and have to talk about, their issues. And had that episode not been in the season, it would have been better for it. But because of the 22 limit and how much money they had to spend, they had to add this episode that just was completely useless. And it's kind of a weird stain on an otherwise incredible back half of a season. So it's a bummer that they forced these 22 episodes on them. And I think that, Ruby Rose mentioned that or the reports have mentioned that in the statement, was that she wasn't super committed to a 22 episode commitment because she'd originally signed on for 19 and they upped it to 22, and you have to shoot for 6 to 7 months. So it's like if they cut it back a little bit, it'd just be a lot easier to digest. And I think all the shows would be better for it. Maybe they'd make less money, obviously, but I think quality-wise, the shows would be better.
No, I agree. I mean, also they could just do that, and we've talked about this before, I think, as well. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they approach each season as 2 seasons. So instead of having one extremely drawn out with filler 22 episode order, 24 episode order, they approach it as we have one season of 10 to 12 episodes. That's one storyline. And then second half of the season is another storyline, and it builds off of each other very organically. And I think that, works really well, which is, I can't remember the exact term they use for how they do it, but basically like the Ghost Rider season, right? Started off, it was a Ghost Rider storyline. Then it very organically transitioned the second half of the season, which was a pseudo Age of Ultron, AI, framework, Ada, season. And then Ghost Rider came back, at the end of that to tie it all together as one, overall season. But, anyways, I think you have to push back Batwoman. I think you need to do a mini series order for Green Arrow and the Canaries. Just one and done it. If it does really well, it's awesome. Bring it back again, but you don't have to feel pressure. You know what I mean? And I think also that's better because if you do a more limited order for Green Arrow and the Canaries, sometimes pressure makes diamonds, and you might get a really great show from the writers, from the cast, from the crew, because they know it's like this is their one shot. You can't blow it, kind of thing.
No, and they put a lot of eggs in that basket. I mean, they went and got Kate McNamara, who was a big actress on Shadowhunters and a few other things she's been in. And they went her and they were saying, hey, you're going to come lead a new show. And listen, to be honest with you, the pilot, it didn't really work for me. I was excited for the idea of the show, the premise of the show. I very much like Katie Cassidy as Black Siren and Juliana Hargavy as Dinah Lance, and I was excited for them to keep going in the Arrowverse. But the what they set up in the pilot didn't super work for me. So I was a little hesitant to just get it picked up for 22 episodes and throw myself into that. But a short season order would be a lot more interesting to me, I suppose, to kind of see where they can take it as kind of a one and done, like, oh, well, we're going to give this a shot. But I think a lot of it's going to be on Superman and Lois to work as well. That's the next show. They're like, hey, this has to work. If it doesn't, we're going to have to figure out something else. So the Arrowverse is in kind of a flux right now. It was so stable for 6-7 years, and now it's just kind of like, well, where do we go from here?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the second half of my plan would actually be doing a Wally West Flash centric miniseries as well. He was traveling for X amount time period, so I would do a miniseries focusing on that, kind of building the Wally West character, low key acting as a backdoor pilot, test audiencing Wally West basically for I would do 6 to 8 episodes for that probably. So you could tell just a nice, neat story. Who the villain would be, I don't really know, top of my head, but my whole focus of that would be to test with the audiences. If I was the CW, how are people receptive to Wally West in the CW leading his own series? Do people gravitate towards it? Do people watch it? If they do watch it, is it well received? Because at this point, like we kind of said, Grant Gustin is on his final legs in terms of doing The Flash. Like, he sounds like he's ready to move on to other projects. Now is your time to figure out, are we going to do a legacy character thing, kind of like Green Arrow and the Canaries, or are we going to be just wrapping it up? So, I mean, I would do my best with that, or, if it doesn't do well, maybe prep yourself for a Bart Allen show in the future, like having Bart Allen as Kid Flash. Instead, introduce Bart Allen in the final season or two, get a really good actor to, portray him too, so he has marketability. I don't know what they're going to do, but they need to do something to prepare for the future of whatever the big three of the DC shows are supposed to look like, basically, is my point. But yeah, do you have any other final thoughts on the whole recasting CW stuff before we tie it up with the final Snyder Cut thing?
I just hope they go about this the right way and don't rush into anything just because they lost a major actress. It's not Doomsday yet, so they just gotta make sure they go about this the right way.
Yeah, and actually, let me say really quick, a great actress that could have replaced Ruby Rose, cannot anymore, is the actress you listed who is portraying Oliver and Felicity's daughter. It's Kate McNamara, right?
Kate McNamara.
I always screw it up, and I feel so bad. It's one of those.
Yeah, it's a complicated last name. I only.
But when I'm saying on top of my head, I only screw it up. But I think she actually, if she dyed her hair red, which I don't know if she'd be in favor of. Well, I guess technically she's a good up and
No, yeah. It's a wig. I mean, she's a really good up and coming actress, and I enjoyed her portrayal as Mia Smoke. It got better towards the end for sure. I mean, the Crisis stuff was really emotional, especially the last few episodes of Arrow. So she's someone I would love to keep around the Arrowverse if Green Arrow and Carrie doesn't work. But obviously she's tied into that rather than Batwoman. But they need to find somebody. There's somebody out there that wants to play Batwoman.
Somebody. It's like the old DirecTV commercial. Someone out there loves you. Like someone out there is going to play Batwoman.
Someone is out there right now, and they will play Batwoman.
Yeah, and hopefully, I wish the best for the series, not only for that actress's, career, but for the cast and crew that are reliant on that lead role to be.
Yeah, obviously, it's such a big production, and jobs. Someone the spearhead of it, the face of it leaving is not a great thing.
But yeah, okay, so I think that pretty much wraps it up. This is a very long conversation, so I'm curious to see how long each segment will end up being. But Jackson, thanks for being available for this and everything. It's great to have that continuation from the last episode discussion.
Had to come back and discuss my opinions.
Exactly. In terms of all the DC stuff, though, I just think it's a great time to be a fan, especially if you're a DC fan, especially if you're a fan of the Snyder Cut stuff. If you were a fan on social media, tweeting day in, day out, congratulations. Your hard work, I guess you could say, has been rewarded. But at the same time, I think we need to be measured in the steps we take going forward, just because there was a lot of harassment, a lot of, lack for a better word, verbal abuse and stuff like that to a lot of people on social media over this movement. And I think we should just take this time to be grateful, I guess, and reverent that we're getting it, because this is something that I think if you asked a lot of people, definitely a year ago, it was still a no. But, before the beginning of 2020, you asked people about this, it was a less than 1% chance kind of thing. So the fact that we're getting this 1 in a million opportunity of getting the Snyder Cut, I think for fans, we should be really grateful, really excited, and just not do anything to screw it up, so to speak. Because you don't put $20, $30 million in something willingly, or not willingly, but, you don't do that, without having.
Yeah, you don't do it
without reason, but also you don't do that just to do it. So, this is probably a very sensitive production, and, we don't want to, just like you made it happen with your words, you don't want to make it unhappen with your words, if you know what I mean. But I doubt they'd pull the plug on this kind of thing. Anyways.
No, after an official announcement,
type of hyped up announcement, there's no way. But I'm just saying in general, let's be as cool as we can about the whole thing, and and not give people reasons to look negatively on this whole thing, because this could inspire other movies in the future, other movements in the future, based on the success of this. So let's, I guess, be an example to aspire towards, as, Snyder's Superman would probably say. But anyways, Jackson, thanks for being here. For those who've listened to the whole thing, thanks for listening to it. If you're listening to it on any of the podcasting platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., let me know which podcast platform you're listening to on. I'm really curious. If you're listening to it on YouTube, thanks for watching the whole thing. I know it's rather long, so I really do appreciate the patience and the, being willing to listen to our voices. I've been told by someone my voice makes you sleepy. So hopefully people are still awake. But thanks for listening. Let us know your thoughts down below on the topics, the Snyder Cut stuff, future of DC films, and Batwoman recasting. And with all that said and done, we'll see you guys later. Jackson, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at JacksonHayes67 and follow Full Circle at Full Circle Cine, and just check out our work at FullCircleCinema.com.
Sweet. Yeah, so talk to you all later, and we'll see you guys next episode.